Dear learners, today we will learn about the international frameworks like the Sendai Framework, Paris Agreement, and all the SDGs. So, disaster risk reduction is guided by three major international frameworks. The Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction 2015 to 2030 focuses on understanding disaster risks, strengthening governance, investing in resilience, and enhancing preparedness for effective response and recovery. The Paris Agreement 2015 addresses climate change by promoting measures to reduce greenhouse emissions and strengthen adaptation, thereby lowering climate related disaster risks. The Sustainable Development Goals 2030, particularly Goal 1, 11, and 13, emphasize reducing poverty, building resilient cities and communities, and taking urgent climate action. Together, these frameworks support sustainable development and help countries reduce disaster risks while improving resilience to future hazards. The Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction 2015 to 2030. The Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction 2015 to 2030. The Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction was adopted in March 2015 at the Third UN World Conference on Disaster Risk Reduction in Sendai, Japan, and is coordinated by UNDRR. It aims to substantially reduce disaster risks and losses by preventing hazards, reducing vulnerability, improving preparedness, and strengthening resilience. The framework is built around four priorities: understanding disaster risks, strengthening disaster risk governance, investing in resilience, and enhancing preparedness while promoting build back better during recovery and reconstructions. It also set seven global targets, including reducing disaster mortality, economic losses, and infrastructure damage while expanding early warning systems and national DRR strategies. India's National Disaster Management Plan 2016 and Odisha's successful cyclone preparedness during Cyclone Fani 2019 are examples of Sendai Framework in action. Let's talk about Paris Agreement 2015. The Paris Agreement 2015 is a legally binding international treaty on climate change adopted at COP21 in Paris under the UNFCCC. Its main goal is to keep the global temperature rise well below 2 degrees centigrade above pre-industrial levels while pursuing efforts to limit it to 1.5 degrees centigrade. The agreement requires countries to submit and regularly update nationally determined contributions and NDCs, review global progress every 5 years through the global stocktake, strengthen transparency, and support climate finance for developing countries. By reducing greenhouse gas emissions and promoting climate adaptation, the Paris Agreement helps lower climate-related disaster risks and build resilience. India's commitments include reducing the emissions intensity of GDP by 45% by 2030, achieving about 50% of installed electric power capacity from non-fossil resources, and reaching net zero emissions by 2070. Now, Sustainable Development Goals 2016 to 2030. The Sustainable Development Goals were adopted by the United Nations General Assembly in 2015 as part of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. The framework consists of 17 goals, 169 targets, and 231 indicators aimed at ending poverty, protecting the planet, and ensuring prosperity for all by 2030. The SDGs are based on the principles of universality, integration, and leave no one behind, recognizing that social, economic, and environmental development are closely interconnected. Several goals directly support disaster risk reduction, particularly SDG 1, that is no poverty, SDG 11, sustainable cities and communities, and SDG 13, climate action, by promoting resilience, sustainable infrastructure, and climate adaptation. In India, initiatives such as the Swachh Bharat Mission, this comes under SDG 6, and progress in reducing multidimensional poverty demonstrate the country's commitment to achieving the SDGs while strengthening disaster resilience. Now let's check how the three framework interlink. The Sendai Framework, Paris Agreement, and Sustainable Development Goals are closely connected and together provide a comprehensive global approach to sustainable development and disaster resilience. Adopted in 2015, they are often referred to as the 2015 Trilogy of Global Agendas. The Sendai Framework focuses on reducing disaster risks and strengthening resilience. The Paris Agreement addresses climate change mitigation and adaptation, and the SDGs promote inclusive social, economic, and environmental development. These frameworks reinforce one another because climate change increases disaster risks. Disaster can reverse development gains, and sustainable development helps reduce vulnerability. For example, SDG 13, that is climate action, and SDG 11, sustainable cities and communities, directly supports the goals of both the Sendai Framework and the Paris Agreement, creating an integrated approach to building safer and more resilient communities. Dear learners, let's do a quick revision. The Sendai Framework, Paris Agreement, and Sustainable Development Goal were all adopted in 2015 and together guide global efforts towards resilience and sustainable development. The Sendai Framework is a voluntary framework focused on disaster risk reduction with a target period of 2015 to 2030 under UNDRR. The Paris Agreement is a legally binding treaty under the UNFCCC that addresses climate change mitigation and adaptation, with countries pursuing long-term net zero emission goals. The SDGs are a voluntary global agenda adopted by the UN General Assembly aiming to achieve sustainable social, economic, and environmental development by 2030. Together, these three frameworks complement each other in reducing disaster risks, addressing climate change, and promoting sustainable development worldwide. Thank you, learners, for your patience hearing.